The world had grown used to rockets carving fire into the sky, yet when the Atlas V stood on its launch pad, towering against the horizon like a sentinel of steel and flame, there was a different kind of anticipation in the air, one that did not belong to ordinary spaceflight, because this mission was shrouded in secrecy. Spoken of in public as routine but whispered about in hidden corridors as something far more extraordinary, and when its engines ignited and the ground trembled beneath its thunder, the spectacle was not merely another triumph of human engineering but the first step in unraveling a mystery that had haunted scientists for decades. The strange and silent anomalies recorded on the surface of the moon, anomalies first glimpsed by Apollo astronauts who reported flashes of light where there should have been only darkness, seismic tremors that made the moon ring like a hollow sphere, and shadows in photographs that seemed too geometric to be natural, whispers of structures that were quickly dismissed or erased from the public eye. And so as Atlas V tore upward through the blue sky, shedding its weight in stages, casting off its skin like a serpent climbing into the heavens, few among the billions watching realized that its true cargo was not just another satellite or lander, but instruments designed to peel back the silence of the moon's surface, to probe with ground-penetrating waves, to scan with imaging beyond human sight, and to listen for signals long suspected but never confirmed, because the moon, for all its familiarity, remained one of the greatest enigmas ever to hang above Earth, its far side hidden, its depths unexplored, and its history written in riddles carved into craters. And what the mission teams knew but the world did not was that this launch was built upon fragments of classified files, data buried for half a century in archives marked for eyes only. Files that spoke of shadows moving across crater floors, of instruments going silent when aimed at certain coordinates, of astronauts cutting their transmissions mid-sentence, their words replaced with static, as if they had seen something that could never be spoken. And now, at last, Atlas V was carrying the means to confirm or deny those buried suspicions, its payload a collection of sensors, radar, and experimental technologies designed not to merely study but to uncover. And as it ascended higher, flames cutting into the sky, the Earth falling away. Behind it, the moon loomed larger ahead, bright and cold, the same familiar face staring down at humanity as it had for millennia. But beneath that face, in the shadows where no light had ever reached, secrets lay waiting, and every soul connected to the mission knew, deep in the marrow of their bones, that they were no longer dealing with mere science but with destiny, because if the whispers were true, if the anomalies proved real, then the moon was not just a celestial neighbor but a vault, a monument, perhaps even a construct of forces far beyond human understanding. And as Atlas V pushed through the void, shedding the last of its stages and guiding its payload toward lunar orbit, silence filled the capsule and silence filled the control rooms. Because silence was what the moon had always given back when humanity dared to ask questions, and yet silence, as history had taught, was sometimes the loudest answer of all. When silence became the loudest answer of all, the mission controllers in their dimly lit rooms stared at the streams of data flooding in, and for a fleeting moment they wondered whether this silence was the moon's final refusal to yield its secrets, or whether it was the prelude to revelation, because the Atlas V payload now in lunar orbit had begun to awaken, its instruments unfurling like the petals of some mechanical flower blooming against the black expanse of space, sending radar pulses deep into the regolith, scanning craters with wavelengths invisible to the human eye. And almost immediately, almost shockingly, the readings did not match the expected, because beneath what should have been nothing but dust and rock there appeared layers too flat, too symmetrical, too ordered, as if the lunar surface were not random geology but the shattered roof of something buried, something hidden. And though the mission was wrapped in secrecy, the scientists and engineers on duty could not disguise the sharp intake of breath, the whispered exclamations, the hurried adjustments to equipment, because they knew they had stumbled upon an anomaly far stranger than the ones whispered of in declassified Apollo reports. This was geometry beneath chaos, structure beneath ruin, and as the sensors swept further, mapping a crater on the far side, one known for its strange albedo and unearthly glow during certain lunar eclipses, the data revealed what no natural body should contain: perfectly straight corridors stretching miles, vast voids, echoing with radar like empty halls, and metallic signatures that could not belong to any known lunar composition. And though the official narrative to the world still spoke of routine lunar science, Within the sealed confines of the control center's tension thickened, because they were not just charting the moon, they were trespassing into something that might have been dormant for eons, and with every orbit, every scan, the maps became clearer, and the pattern more undeniable, until it looked less like geology and more like architecture, a labyrinth concealed beneath the scarred face of the moon. And now the silence was not absence but waiting, as if whatever lay there had simply been patient across countless centuries, waiting for the moment humanity would come knocking. And Atlas V had just knocked louder than anyone before, and the controllers whispered among themselves, what if the moon was not merely the moon? What if it was a shell, an outpost, a relic, or worse, what if it was never meant to be found? And as the data streams painted their eerie story, mission leaders faced a choice: to announce discovery and risk global panic, or to bury this knowledge as had been done decades before. Yet the deeper they dug, the less plausible secrecy became, because the instruments began to detect not just echoes of voids but signals, faint, pulsing, structured, as though something beneath the lunar crust was still alive in some mechanical sense, sending out whispers into the cosmos, whispers humanity had now accidentally intercepted. And as engineers calibrated filters, aligning frequencies, a pattern emerged, not static but rhythm, not noise but code, a message etched into silence, older than civilization itself. And in that instant, the mission was no longer about exploration, it was about first contact, or last warning, and nobody could say which. Only that the moon's silence had broken, and the sound it made would change the fate of mankind forever.